And we're live.
Welcome to Real Talk at the Round Table with Coach Susan Tapper, Coach David Smith, and Coach William Forcum. We're going to talk a little bit about personal development today. But first, how was your day, David?
It was groovy, but I am excited for what Susan Tapper has to talk to us about. So let's get right into it. Susan, come on up.
All right. So what I'm going to talk about is the role that that our family of origin might play in our financial dysfunction or our financial wellness. So, did you guys want to ask me something about that, or should I just start talking about it?
I definitely have some questions right off. That is a big topic. Very interesting.
Mhm.
I remember when we came up with it, actually, you came up with it on the phone, and it was like a God thing. It was just like on the spot. And I knew as soon as you said it, there was going to be some really great conversation about it. So let me see if I can even get it right in my head. How our family affects our personal financial dysfunction or wellness.
Yeah, and it means the family that you grew up with. We're not talking about, we're not necessarily, well, we could talk about our family today, but it's really about your foundational beliefs that happened when you were a kid and learning about life in the home or environment you were growing up in.
So it's like, what is your template? What is your personal financial template? And
Yes.
how has that template played well for you or perhaps contributed to some dysfunction?
Right. Or, given challenges, you know, from all the people that I know that have this conversation about money and finances, career, uh, the ones that dig deeper, psychologically, we have this discussion, and it's like, well, what was some of the questions we ask each other are, what was your, what is your first memory of handling money?
Mm,
Or what
yeah.
was your first, if you can remember, what is, or what do you remember about your first impression about what is money about? And that's always, I feel, a very enlightening topic about where people are today.
You know, it.
Particularly, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, particularly if there's been issues around getting into a lot of debt, or spending compulsions, or sort of having trouble staying employed, like something is being acted out.
hmm And it kind of reminds me. One guy always said, um, you know, somebody in your family is a problem. And if you don't have that somebody in your family, it's probably you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, I know, like in my family, I was the one that loved to spend money. I loved to go out to eat. $4,000 per month was nothing for me. And when I did my first budget and was like, what? But to
Mm-hmm.
me, in my eyes, it was cheaper for me to eat out than it was for me to buy food because I'd only eat leftovers and I just throw them away. And it was more, in my mind, I would spend more money if I was buying groceries. But when I did the budget, I was like, wait a second, $4,000? Am I insane?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting what you said about not eating leftovers. I know someone who was not eating out. They were buying all the groceries, but she could not eat leftovers. So, money was being wasted because leftovers were not allowed in her household. Now, why was that? I never knew why until, you know, a few years later I learned that she grew up in a poor household and in a city. So she and her brother would be dropped off at some kind of a government facility, for kids, and they would serve lunch. They would serve them meal. So because of that experience, she always felt like she was eating bad food or food about to turn. It didn't matter. She could not eat leftovers. And her husband would be like, "What are you talking? What are you talking about? I'll eat it." But she would throw it away. Like she couldn't even like have the thought of it. So, um, I mean, they had enough money, but it was an issue because her husband would see that this is wasted money,
Hmm.
you know, and it was. But at the same time, like she couldn't get past that. She couldn't. So it's things like that. Like that's something that happened in her childhood that affected how she behaved in her adulthood. And that did have a financial impact.
Hmm.
Yeah. And we have those, all of us, every single one of us have some kind of trauma, some kind of memory that's tied to a decision or a choice that we're actively choosing in our adulthood right now, like every day, and it's causing some sort of dysfunction.
Hmm.
And I really like how you connected those two in this lady's story. Now, let me ask you, were you there when she made that connection and that breakthrough happened?
She never had the breakthrough. I mean, I
Okay.
mean, she never got over it. She didn't change her behavior. She just
Okay.
explained it.
Okay.
She
Okay.
explained why she's not going to have leftovers in her home,
Hmm.
but she never got over it.
Well, as far as me, I can explain my part. Whenever you heat something up, it never turns out right. Um, and Will, you can contest with this. When I have
I will.
pizza leftovers, I eat it cold now. I do eat leftovers now, but I eat it cold. French fries, you just can't recover. But pizza, I can eat cold pizza now. So I do eat
Mm.
leftovers. I still can't heat it up because it just doesn't come out right.
Yeah. So, in the 20th century, there has been a new kitchen appliance called the air fryer, and it brings the bounce back, baby, to those fries, to that pizza, to those tater tots, whatever you throw in there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate. You should try it, David. I think you'd be very, very impressed.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll give it a try. Hey, at least I'm eating cold, right? At least I am eating leftovers.
I
That
love
is
them.
true.
I love my leftovers. I love them. I
Yep.
just, but
Yep.
Well, see, Susan, when we went to the restaurant, um, I like my steak I'm very strict. I like it medium, well done. No pink, still juicy. Fine line. Bring it to me when it's slightly pink. It'll be perfect by the time it gets to me. You can't take that home because it's not going to be the same.
I'm not going to take that home. I'm going to eat it.
Exactly. So that's why I eat it all right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certain things.
And go ahead.
No, no, no. Certain things are not really to be taken home. They're to be eaten. I do get that.
Thank you.
Sure. Sure.
I do get it.
And I feel like there are certain stages in life where we can choose to be pickier, choose not to be as picky. Um, and also even like surpassing that, if we have real, let's say when we have real meaning and purpose, um, I feel like all those silly little details about I want my steak a certain way or I'm not going to eat leftovers, they just fall to the wayside because we're just looking for fuel at this point, right? So that we can have energy to accomplish the meaning and purpose. What are your thoughts on that?
I, I don't know what to think of that. I actually don't know what to think of that.
What about you, David?
I drink the fifth, or I mean, I plead the fifth.
So he's got to have a certain type of wine, or he's not going to drink it. Just kidding, bro. So
What do you
yeah,
think?
what do I think?
Hmm,
I think that people are spoiled and they need to get over themselves.
I would
I think
agree.
that, yeah, I think that we put way too much emphasis on silly things that don't
Hmm.
really matter. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too, like back to the topic, a lot of times people are playing out their childhood um, home, right? Drama, trauma, or just kind of what was going on, right? Like clutter is one of those things that I think is very indicative of uh, something was sort of insecure. There was some kind of insecurity in the home, or maybe there was a lot of strife in the home, maybe a lot of fight, something, because that's something that a lot of people, um, adults, uh, deal with, or struggle with, is not being able to let go of things, not being able to put things in order. So you might go into their house and there's stuff all over, or you open a closet and whoa, you can barely open that closet. You may not get it shut again, and it's packed with stuff that they don't even use. That clutter is kind of a classic example of there's just like a lot of old stuff up here spinning around in the emotions. And that's one of the things that I have to watch that myself. And I notice it very quickly when I see it in others or kids even. Yeah. Clutter is one thing. Um, Something else I've noticed is that if some people, when they grow up with, there's real lack, uh, I would even say it might even be poverty. But if they get older and they're able to get their hands on a credit card, they're going to just be like, buying this, buying that. It's all appearances. And I know a few people that are still struggling with that. Like, their furniture is very beautiful, their car is this and that, but they are up to their eyeballs in debt. But they don't seem to be able to look at the bigger picture of what are you doing in all this debt. They have to have, the best clothes. Their kids have to be dressed to the nines, and then, like, in their minds, in their personality, they're under so much stress, and they typically complain a lot about it. Complain all their finances. I should have gotten that raise. As if more money is going to sort of clear up the problem, which it won't, because there'll just be more charges, more debting, more debt, because they need to be seen in a certain kind of car. Their kids have to be seen, and it's like Dave Ramsey talks about it quite a bit, trying to look like you're super rich when you're not. Like it's sad. It's sad. So that, that's coming from something that
Hmm.
went on when they were kids,
And
you know.
it's funny you bring that up because the thing is there's a lot of people out there driving BMWs, Cadillacs, and all
Mhm.
these kind of cars. We call them fake rich because they can't really afford it, and they get these cars so they can look wealthy, and yet they can't even afford it. And when they're real rich people, they have Hondas and they have Toyotas. They have Pilots. They have CRVs. They have Civics. They have Toyota Corollas. They have a car that'll get you from A to B. They don't care about what it looks like. Now, their house might be nice, but they don't care about the car. Wheels and motors lose value.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I know someone who they say, "Well, I only drive, I'll just make up a brand, Lincoln. I only drive Lincoln." And it's like, okay, hoop de doo, right? And then I've come to find out that they've never owned a Lincoln. They've leased Lincolns.
Mm.
So they're for whatever the reason, they need to be seen in that way. They need to be seen, they feel they need to be seen as a Lincoln Continental owner.
But leases
Yeah,
are even worse than financing. That's the worst
totally.
way to ever get a car. Phew.
Totally. And they've
Ouch.
done it their whole life.
Yep. Well,
We're
once you're
talking
in a
about
lease, you pretty much have to stay in a
person.
lease because whenever you
Mm-hmm.
get out of your lease, you're going to basically pay for the car, but they just keep rolling it and rolling it to a new lease and a new lease. But the more they
Right.
roll it, the worse it's going to be to get out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this person will have to die to get out of it.
Oh boy.
They'll have to die, you know? But it was funny how it was presented. And
Hmm.
I immediately thought, well, there's something that they experienced where maybe they felt less than for whatever the reason. And now the Lincoln Continental makes them feel like they're not less than.
Hmm.
Or there's something going on there,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah.
Now, one thing with me, um, before I did my first budget, before I actually learned how to do things, a long time ago, like way, way, like decades and decades ago, I had a car. I spent a lot of money into it. I think I bought the car for like 20,000, and then I put a huge, nice kicker system into it, and spent a good 30,000 on the stereo system, the amps, the whole 9 yards. I mean, I had the system where I pop the back window. I can have the whole street bumping. That's how good the system was. And I mean, it had kickers and amps. I mean, it had it all. And I was driving, and something was going wrong with the car. And I had AAA, so I had him tow it to the closest mechanic. And they seen sucker on my forehead. I don't know nothing about cars. I know computers. I don't know cars. And my brother looked at the bill. It was just over a tune-up for $12,000. And my
Mm.
brother said they seen you coming. I
Mm.
wasn't allowed to take my car to another shop without him, at least on the phone. So I had to get new cars. Every single year I had to have a new car because with a new car I was always in warranty. And I had to get the car in before 100,000 miles because at 100,000 miles you lose a lot of value. So like 90, 95,000, I would turn the car in. And that was about every year, year and a half. And I went 5 years of always having a brand new car. Matter of fact, 2020, I had three brand new cars.
Mm.
I didn't lease them. I was smarter than that. But they were all financed. And I would always turn it
Mhm.
in beforehand, and I would roll it in and wouldn't have to have no money down. And the car always got paid off. But the thing was, is I always had to have a new car because my thing was I had to have a new car so I didn't have to worry about the maintenance. Now, after learning the right system, I realized, well, yes, the new cars don't really have much, problems, but also you can have a good car that doesn't have issues. Like I have a 10-year-old Honda Civic, and Will knows this. It's a freaking good car. I mean, it may not look the best. The hood is kind of like faded, but who cares? I didn't get the car for the looks. I got the car
Mhm.
because it's dependable. This car is going to be able to easily go 300,000. And I don't. The only thing I've had to do to it was oil changes and tires. That's it.
And
You know,
breaks.
I haven't even had to do brakes on it yet.
Okay.
So as long as I take care of it, it will last forever. And when I do have to take care of the brakes, this person doesn't know it yet, but I already know the person I have in mind, and he might be in this room right here. He's already saying no. But the thing is like I don't even know who to take it to for brakes. That's how bad of a guy I am. If I don't have somebody to lead me to the right person, I will get suckered. So I don't do
You
it.
Mm.
know, it reminds me of a
Right.
story of a friend and I. We went to go get some brakes. Went to. I'm gonna throw this. I'm gonna throw this company on. I'm gonna put them on blast. Budget Brakes. Um, nothing budget about this place. So we went and they checked it out. It was making a rattle, a noise, so of sorts, and really sounded like the brake pads were rubbing, and it needed some new brake pads. So I went back there for my friend. My friend was unable to go back there because of some health reasons, and so I walked back there, was looking, and it looked like that we had caught it right in time. Like there was a millimeter, maybe less, on the brake pad, and it was like not damaging the rotor somehow. Like it was the exact right time on the fronts, and then on the backs there was just a little bit, just a little bit. They needed to be changed, but they still had, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months life on them. So I'm like, okay, I'm like taking pictures, and I go back and I'm talking to my friend about it. Now my friend, uh, he's not a current diesel mechanic, but he did. He was a diesel mechanic for years, years, years. Like it's what he did for a living. They didn't know that. And I do a lot of my own stuff too. So we're like, in the know. It was just for convenience purposes. So the guy, he comes in, a professional. He comes in and he's like trying to sell us some brakes, and he quotes us $1,200 for new brake pads all the way around. Now, for all of you guys and gals who are familiar, like David, um, that's way too high. That's like way too high. Like you can go and get brake pads, $70 a piece, and do it yourself. Or you can pay somebody just a little bit more than that. They can do it for you. But $1,200 for brake pads all the way around, and that's it. That's like they're stealing. And he got stern with them. And this guy took tail. He walked right around the counter. I'll never forget it. And he's like, just put them back on. And he's like, sir, I would strongly recommend. It's like, put them back on. And so he put them back on, and we drove away. But it was the principle of it. So David, I will say, do your research. Do your research. Absolutely do your research. And no, bring somebody like your brother or like me. Yeah, I can definitely help you there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that might, I'm not going to ask this question, but that might go back to a family of origin issue, right? Because if we asked ourselves these kind of questions, like how was money regarded? How were finances regarded in the house that you grew up in, right? And some people might say, oh, there was financial chaos. There was, sometimes there was no food, or the lights were turned out, the shut off, where we had to move, you know. I knew someone that grew up, they had to move a lot because they couldn't pay the rent. So they would just move, right? So, and then like identifying, being able to say what it was like, what kind of an environment was like, or it might be a very affluent environment, but there was no communication. There was no, uh, I'll even say love, if you will. There was, everything was there. Plenty of needs were met, or not just needs, but wants, but there wasn't connection, you know. Dad was always at work, or mom was always going here, going there, spending money, blah, blah, blah. But there wasn't closeness, there wasn't real healthy closeness. So I think once we sort of say out loud what it was like, what it looked like, then the next question is, are you, are you, or, saying to myself, am I replicating any of that? I might not be even replicating it. Am I still reacting to it? And that's a very good question to ask, because I had to look at myself, and the answer was yes. I'm still acting like the 9-year-old that, you know, kind of got it, like, oh yeah, that's why dad goes to work. He goes to work to get money, to buy all the stuff, right? And then realizing, oh, everything I'm looking at in my house when I was 9, everything had to be bought, had to be paid for. It freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
Curtains, carpeting, vacuum cleaners, toilet paper. I just started going like, everything I see costs money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then for whatever the reason, I said to myself at 9, oh my gosh, how would I ever do? Like nobody was asking me to nobody was asking me to pay for anything or to get a job at 9.
Mm-hmm.
But I my interpretation of that was, oh my gosh, like I don't know what I don't know what I would do if I had to do that. Like how does he do that? Anxiety. So another kid might probably just let it blow over their head, wouldn't give it another thought, right? So I do believe asking those questions, it's like finding out, well, how do I tick? Am I ticking am I ticking like an old clock inside of me? It's like I'm back in time somewhere? Probably yes. And I think a
Yep.
lot of people, I think that's absolutely the case for a lot of people.
Well,
So,
and you said a key point, Susan. Um, a lot of times our parents we imitate. That's why people talk about these generational curses. So we carry on family
Come on.
traditions.
Come on.
Unless we actually break that curse, that generational curse, we're going to continue in their habits. Now, the good things we want to continue. And it's also like, um, I don't want to be nothing like my mother, but yet I'm going to marry somebody just like my mother. Or like for the daughter, I don't want nobody like my father. He was a prick, but they marry exactly like their father. Unless you break that generational curse, you're going to follow right into your family traditions. Exactly how your parents
Exactly.
were, exactly how their parents were, and so on and so on.
right.
Mhm.
Or at
Yeah.
least there'll be some kind of vestiges, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, like I was raised by somebody who was, well, both my parents they were born in the Depression, right? And then my grandparents, and on one side, I had a lot of contact with them. They were adults that lived through the Depression. I know in some ways, I have their mentality from the Depression.
Hmm.
I literally will be like, oh, wow, look at this rubber band. I would never throw that rubber band out.
Hey, there's so many
Oh,
purposes I can use it for.
there are. And twist ties. I got twist ties.
Hmm.
I got, my niece caught me because she saw me in the basement. I had all these bottles, glass bottles. Glass is important.
And plastic.
Not the plastic, not the plastic, just the glass, right? And she called me on it. She goes, Aunt Susan, what are you doing? I'm like, you know. So I said to her, you know what? I'm gonna throw half of my glass bottles out. Not all of them, half of them,
And
you
that was
know.
still about 1,000, right?
No, no, not that many, not that many. But but the feet there, see, there's a lot of emotion behind it.
Hmm.
And what did I witness? I saw my dad saved a lot of stuff, and it wasn't, he had it all categorized neatly, very neatly organized and stuff like that. And when he died, like we knew he had that stuff, but we had bottle tops, you know, he just, whatever, he couldn't let go of it. So we got rid of it after he died. But where did that come from? That came from the Depression.
Hmm.
I'm sure of it, you know.
Yeah. And it's similar to that, even if it's not a generational curse, we go through different times. Look at the kids nowadays. They're spoiled, um, uh, can just blow money like you wouldn't believe, and just so wasteful. And we're like, the wiser generation now is just like, what are you doing? You need to save up.
Mm,
The average you should have 33%. This is if you have no budget, like if you're a child, you should be doing 30%, 33% saving, investing. 33% should be for giving, and 33% should be your whatever you want to spend it on. And that would be a proper system. And then as you get older, you use the same analogy, just more worked out because we have bills.
What about that extra 1%, David?
Okay, 33.333333. How is that?
or just give 34 to one category, right?
Yeah, might as well give it to giving. Give that extra percent away.
Might as well.
Yeah, but
And
if nobody is there to teach the kids about money, how are they going to learn, right?
Exactly.
How are they going to learn? So, I mean, I find that cash, like when I take my granddaughters out for breakfast, which isn't that often, but when I do it, I go to the diner and I always have cash,
Hmm.
and I have a 20, a 10, a few fives, a bunch of ones, and a lot of change.
Yeah.
Because when the bill comes, they're 7 and 8. I let them, because they know math already. Here, girls, figure out the bill, take this money and get the bill paid,
Hmm.
right? So they love doing it. And I told them, I said, you have to hand that money over to the man or woman at the cash register, right? Um, Mostly we give them the exact amount because I've got the money. And then they're to say thank you for your service. We didn't just pay for food, we paid for service.
Hmm.
And then when they come back to the table, we figure out the tip. That's going to be cash, of course. And I like them to go right up to the waitress. It's usually a waitress, and give it to her and thank her,
Hmm.
right? But they love having that experience, because otherwise, if I go and go swipe, 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 they don't see anything. They don't see anything. They don't learn anything. They don't they don't even really know what happened.
Hmm.
They didn't know. They actually don't know that I paid for breakfast.
Hmm.
I want them to know. I want them to know that I paid for breakfast,
Yep.
and that I pulled money out of my wallet,
Yep. And
you know.
I have $100 I can't spend. Now Will knows this, but I have $100 wallet. It's literally a wallet that's shaped it's imprinted $100 bill. So I always make a joke. There's $100 I can't spend because it's leather. But
Right.
I always carry cold hard cash in the wallet so that no matter what I need, I'm able to do it. And that's the key, because even if you have a card, and I do have a card, I love to use debit cards for when needed. You're able to use it for like when you're getting a hotel, you have to have a card. When you're
Mm-hmm.
getting a car rental, you have to have a card. So
Mm-hmm.
it's needed to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But I always love using the joke, and I'll say I have $100 I can't spend, and a kid will say, I'll spend it for you." And then when I pull it out, it's like, I can't spend that. I told you.
Oh, you
Right.
literally can't spend it.
Yeah, yeah, because it's
Right.
literally made out of leather.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nope.
I like giving kids cash too.
Hmm.
I like giving kids cash. Like the kids at my church, I go to a very small church. Thank God. So there aren't that many kids. I'm being facetious.
Well,
So,
it's funny you say that because, like, at my church, matter of fact, the kids are just getting these. Just recently had gotten these things. They all have to sell something. So you
mm,
got every kid coming up to you, and because I work at the church, right? They're coming up to you and saying, Can you get something out of this book? Can you pick something out of here? Can you pick something out of here? Do you want something here?" And it's like, and every single one of the kids are coming up to you. And it's like, uh.
yeah. Well,
One parent
and
actually says the
mhm,
first kid I'll buy from. All the others were too late.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
Well, this I'm glad there's not too many kids because what I do is I give them because I got a big family too. So, I got to take care of my family. But I like, if it's their birthday, they're 9 or they're 11 or 13, whatever. I give them those dollars, $13, 11. I give them a dollar for every year. So in that way, it's not a lot of money. It's something I can absolutely afford, and it's kind of fun because I ask them every time they get their little money. I say, "Do you have a bank? Do you have a little bank in your room, like a piggy bank?" And they all do. So I figured if I give them cash, they have to deal with it.
Hmm.
How they deal with it, it's not my business, but it's something to deal with,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
speaking of that, I got a funny story. So my brother, he has a little girl. Matter of fact, she's 6 right now. On the 4th, she turns 7, and it's so cool. She has this wallet, and she had money in it, and she was so proud. She comes running to me and says, "I got a $12 bill," and I'm like, "I didn't know there was a $12 bill." She pulls out a 20 and says, "I got a $12 bill," and I was like, "That's a 20." But it
That's
was just so
sweet.
cool because she like holds on to it. She will not spend it. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's already made $8 past what she thought she had.
There you go.
That's great.
I like
That's
it. I
great.
like it. Now, going back to just for a minute, well, maybe it'll go longer than a minute. I don't know, but I'm just going to stay there for a minute. The generational curses, the generational curses. Um, I've been fighting through some of my own, and I know that you guys have as well. Um, can be very disheartening and discouraging when we don't have the support of our families. Not saying that I don't, I'm not going there, but when that is the case, it can be very disheartening and very discouraging. But
Mm-hmm.
one really encouraging thing that I have found in my own journey, breaking the generational curse that I'm breaking, which I'll tell you what it is here in just a minute. It was God that illuminated it. It was God that invited me on the journey. And it's with God that I get to break it. And I get to do it inside of community. I get to do it with my brothers and my sisters. I get to do it with transparency and with the utmost positivity. And I get to do it brave. I get to do it scared. I get to do it in general. And I think that that is really what I wanted to hammer on.
Okay, Will,
The,
you have
the
got me at
generational,
the
yeah,
edge of my seat. I'm anxious to hear what your generational curse is.
I like it. My generational curse is, drum roll, please. Okay, I tried. I give myself a drum roll. It is anti-social ism, if that is a word. My people are just, they don't like people. I don't know, and I love people, and I haven't always been that way, but I'm like growing into my true identity, and I'm just seeing the beauty every single person has. They're beautiful in their own way. And it's like, if I focus in on the beauty, I get to conjure that out and help that person along. If I focus in on the negative, I'm doing the exact opposite. That's the enemy's work. Hallelujah. So really, God has been so encouraging. And along with my brothers and my sisters, right? Also very encouraging. It's very powerful where we choose to place our focus. If we're placing our focus on the good, the lovely, the heavenly, the positive, we're going to conjure that out in our brother and our sister. We're going to turn into a person that, hey, they want to be around us. Why? Because they're better when they're around us, right? It's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing. What do you think, David?
Well, Will, I just have to say I am honored that you are around me
I'm
because
honored that I'm around you, bro.
because you have broken your generational curse, and I would have never guessed that because
Never.
we have so much fun. Actually, if you guys on here, you watch some of our videos that we advertise for the different people coming on these podcasts, we have so much fun doing it. They're all small, short clips, but we have so much fun doing it. They're silly, they're stupid, they're serious. They're a little bit of everything all crammed up in one short video, and we do 7 of them for each person. So it's hilarious because we actually have fun doing it, and I would have never figured that was a generational curse that you broke.
I would never have guessed it either. Never way. No way.
That's so cool. Thank you for the encouragement. I love that. That is so cool. And let me tell you, anybody that's breaking through, persevering through the generational curses, it's scary. And I know it's scary. Know that you're not in it alone. Get with a coach, get with Miss Susan Tapper, David Smith, myself. We can coach you through that fear, all the pain, the depravity, like all of it. Sometimes it's negative talk from within your family, the people that you're supposed to be drawing the strength from. You're not able to. Why? Because of that stinking thinking, that generational curse. And know that God is specifically like placed you there for a reason, not to look down your nose at them like I'm better or nothing like that, like, but to be a voice of encouragement, to be a voice of love, to
Hmm.
be a voice of love there in your family, and
Hmm.
with your brothers and your sisters.
That's right.
That's right. Amen. Amen. And something that I think a lot of people have to deal with if they grew up in a really poor situation or a poverty situation is that if they do well, oh, the whole family's going to want to, lean on them. That's a real thing. And that is also a reason why some people fail to go further in their success,
Hmm.
because they're like, if I really succeed more, if I really go ahead, oh, I got this whole family back there that everyone's going to want something. Oh, you got to help me. I got to go to the dentist and da 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 da. But I think, and that's where I really believe, like, what we can learn through Dave Ramsey's work is how to handle that, you know, and it's just so beautiful. We really dig in, then we get to know. It's like, hey, my brother, hey, my sister, or whoever it is in the family's like, I would be more than happy to pay for your financial peace university class, right?
Hmm. Well,
And
it's funny that you bring him up because, talking about generational curses, back in the day, there is a thing that, hey, the way we make money is we use other people's money.
Mm,
And we buy a whole bunch of real estate, we maximize it, we use it, and we keep buying more. And Dave Ramsey had over $4 million worth of properties. He was in the hole by 3 million. He was a million ahead. He was making over $200,000 a year. And he was definitely living large. He got that one car that he always dreamed of. He was doing good. But then out of the clear blue, and he was ahead on all his payments. Out of the clear blue, they decided to call him his loans. And they can do that as long as it's not your only house that you're living in.
mhm,
So it's wise to break that curse, quit living off of other people's money, and live off of your own. And it's key to realize that, hey, he did it, so can we. He's
mhm,
designed a plan and get you out of debt so that you can truly own that when and it's funny because a man once said that when you truly own a property, go walk out that. I walked barefoot in my property and it was painful. And I told him it was painful and he laughed at me. He says, "What do you mean?" And now, to be honest with you, I live out in the country. So we have rocky grass, right? Because when people drive on the dirt road, the rocks go up in your grass. And so he laughed and he says, "Only you, only you." Now, normally when people
mhm.
live out in those areas, they're used to, but I'm a city boy with a new property, and it is free and clear and paid for, but the thing is it's new. I'm not used to it. And so I don't walk barefoot. So when I did, it was painful.
Ouch. Yeah.
So, but normally, if you own a property, you walk in it barefoot, it just feels different because it's yours. It's not something
Mhm,
you hope you can make the payments, it's yours. Nobody can
mhm.
take it from you, it's yours.
Yeah.
You always have something you can fall on because it's
Mhm,
yours.
mhm, mhm. That's great.
So, yeah, that's why it was funny when you said that because it's like, yeah, there's a guy that broke a generational curse. Throughout
Mhm,
all history, everybody always says, oh, use somebody else's money. Don't worry, buy a car, lease it,
mhm.
finance it. Everybody has to have one. Of course, you can't afford it, right?
Yeah, but that kind of thinking is actually pretty new in the scheme of things because I would say in the I would say in the 60s, yeah, there were credit cards were really starting to come up a bit, but there was plenty of people back then that they had no debt.
hmm
Everything everything was cash,
But the
you know?
difference is back then, your employer, they bought you, you work for them, you had to work so long to get out of under your employer, and then they would sell stuff from their own store, which would keep you further in debt. The whole
Mhm,
idea of the employers back in the day was keep you tied into them so you could never leave them, so they always had you,
mhm, mhm.
you
Unless you
know.
had your own business.
Right. Yep.
Mhm.
And then you were doing that to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. My grandfather owned a business. I'm pretty sure he did not do that.
That's good. He was a good
Um,
man then.
No, he was. He was a very good man.
hmm
But I know I see your point. Yeah, there was ways to keep people in need, right? So you had to be smart to get yourself out of that manipulated position,
hmm
right?
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what it was, a manipulated position. Throughout all history, people
And
always
it's
try to
the same
manipulate us
now,
some way.
right? And it's the same now because
hmm
people are letting themselves be manipulated. Oh, I've got to have this and I've got to have that and I've got to live here and I've got to go on this trip.
hmm
I heard somebody recently. I mean, this person is really struggling, and I was like, well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do next? And he said, oh, I'm gonna go travel. With what? What do you mean travel? On what? I didn't say that, but I just was like, man, that is delusional.
Hmm.
Delusional. There's no
Well,
money to go travel.
I'm going to get another credit card so I can go traveling.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
know.
it was I was just like, I can't touch that one. I'm gonna leave that one alone. I'm gonna
Hmm.
leave that one alone. But it made me feel sad because I felt sad for that person because I'm not gonna go into their details, but the last thing that they should be doing is traveling.
Hmm.
They should be probably using that money to go to the dentist. Hmm?
Mm,
Maybe?
yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
one thing
No.
I would say to stretch that is because the first thing you have to do is have security. So, and I don't know the situation, but let's just say they weren't secure in where they're at. So they want to travel to another area where maybe they can get a secure ground so they can build.
Nah,
That wasn't okay.
nah,
I don't know. I
nah.
was trying.
No, it's all about having some fun, all about having fun.
Oh,
So I
okay.
just like I back off. I'm like, I'm not, that person was not interested in having that conversation. So I'm not going to go there. That's like
Hmm.
the last thing on earth I would have been doing in their position. I'd be getting a new car because they have a broken down car. I'd be going to the dentist. Right. I'd probably be paying attention to some other health things. But anyway, that's dreamy thinking.
Hmm.
Right. So, uh, I I like we started to say before we came on, that whole thing about, oh, the latest flavor, what's going on? Oh, gee, blowing around like a leaf in the wind. I don't want to be that person anymore. And thank God I'm not that person anymore, you
Hmm.
know? So now I have a question for you guys. Are we supposed to talk about the carnivore diet too?
If it comes up.
Because I'm just looking at the time. I don't know. We don't have to, but
But one thing before I do like to talk about the carnivore diet um, with you. One thing before, there's something about like when we extract our identity from material stuff, it gives it power over us, doesn't it? So this person, he's very clearly needing to go take care of himself. He needs to go to the dentist. Needs to go get some car repairs, some things that like take priority over traveling. But it seems like he or she, they are extracting their identity from their ability to go travel. And it's a really odd phenomenon, really. Because as coaches, we get to place ourselves kind of on the objective, looking in, and see this, and then like try to make some sort of connection, and then articulate it in a way that's going to be edifying. And you were like, I'm not touching that one, right? There's like so much stuff. So I appreciate your ability to notice that and be like, okay, I'm gonna have that in my back pocket, but I'm not gonna go there yet. I'm not just gonna go in like a bull in a china shop. Maybe push him away rather than pull him in.
Hmm.
Now, the carnivore diet. Ooh, carnivore diet. These are my
yeah,
things.
yeah, it's been almost a year and a half. And
Mm-hmm.
I do, like yesterday, I had a salad, a very deliberate salad.
Okay.
It's probably the first salad that I've made for myself in a few months, right? Um, so it's just helped me so much. No, it's okay. It's okay. Like the whole thing about the carnivore thing is clearing out. It's not, for some people, it is a forever diet. For me, I would say it's probably a 90% forever diet. So, because I just see what happens. Like when I get my carbs, when I get my sugar to zero, has to go to zero. And I get my carbs very close to zero, if not zero, my brain works better. That's just me. So, and I used to
Wait,
be
wait.
this.
So, for clarity purposes, when you say when I get my sugar to zero, what exactly do you mean by that?
I'm not eating any sugar. I'm not eating anything that's going to raise my sugar. So if I have like a bunch of sweet potatoes, that's going to raise my sugar, right? Or if I decide I'm going to have a big fruit salad, that's going to raise the sugar, right? So when I keep my sugar pretty close to zero, if zero or pretty close to zero, I think much more clearly. I wake up in the morning and that's just me. Who knew? I had no idea that would happen. But so now, like I do like salad. There's lots of things that I like, but if I really keep them to a minimum and spread them out, not have a salad every day. I used to eat salad every day, and it was delicious, and I thought I was fine, and I kind of was fine in a way, but I had no idea how much brain fog I had until I said, let me try this carnivore thing, see what happens. And I was like, oh my gosh, like with the absence of sugar, and of course the absence of processed food, and the very close to near absence of carbs, even if it's a nice sweet potato or a carrot, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like I got a different brain. So
Mm,
that's the brain that I prefer to have, because life is just so much easier
yeah,
when I have clarity. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's powerful. Something that I was reminded of that I had forgotten. A lot of things like that. As I'm getting older. Um, so is don't drink anything, water, Coke, coffee, tea, anything, any liquid, 30 minutes before you eat or 30 minutes after you eat.
Hmm.
Why?
I agree, because the digestive juices, you'll dilute them, right? And
Yes.
and think about it. If you were living in the elements, if we were living, we wouldn't be like, oh, Jay, I need to go over to the stream and like drink water while I'm eating. You wouldn't do that. You would eat when you eat, and you would drink when you drink.
Mhm.
So I actually do believe in that. The problem is I also like to take some vitamins, and a lot of vitamins want to be taken with food, and then you do need to. So that kind of bothers me a little bit, because then you're drinking water to get the vitamins down. So that to me is a little. So I have days where I don't take any vitamins,
Maybe just
because
a little bit of water won't affect it as much, but like, glass after glass after glass. And I was listening to a podcaster and they were talking about that. And, there's how it flies in the face of our culture. Think about it. You go to a restaurant, first thing they ask you, what do you want to drink? And then you say, I don't want anything, they'll still bring you water. And then you're drinking water through your meal. Everybody does it. And we
yeah.
all seem to be having some digestion problems. And it's probably because we eat like crap. But, once we like figure that out, and get to where Miss Susan Tapper has been for a little while, we're eating like sweet potatoes and fruit salads for our sugar and not Snickers and Rice Krispie treats. Um, then, when we're still not performing optimally, it's like, why? Maybe it's this. Maybe we're robbing our body of the nutrients that it needs
Mhm.
to digest because we're watering down the stomach acid.
Right. Right. And we eat too much. Like this past Monday, I didn't eat anything until about 5:30 in the evening. I had some bone broth that I made, which is kind of bone broth. Um, and then the next day, I'm going by the true feeling. I woke up hungry. I was like, hungry. So I had some eggs and I had some beef. And then like an hour later, I was hungry again. And that's unusual. So I was like, well, I'm going to eat again. So I ate more beef. And then the rest of the day, I was fine. I don't eat when I'm not hungry. And that's what happens when we're eating junk and crap. We just eat for entertainment. We eat for fun. We eat, oh, that tastes good. So what the carnivore diet does to a lot of people is it stops the eating for any other reason except being legitimately hungry. And then being satiated, and then you're not going to eat anymore. So it's anyway,
I
it's a
like that.
pretty interesting, experience.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, that is powerful. And we just wanted to mention we like to make three announcements. Um, well, before I do that, let me see if there was any. Nope. So we like to make three announcements. First of all, for all coaches, we have a coaches community. This is
Mm.
key because we have a blueprint in there which creates activity, creates you guys motivated, and keeps you in the right place. This is for coaches of any kind. Whether you're a Ramsey coach, a Tony Robbins coach, an ICF coach, you have to have credentials or a certification from somewhere. But brings all coaches together in a community to help you out. Second, we have the Absolute CRM. This is going to give you an all-in-one system that's going to keep you motivated to keep you making money with marketing, with social media posting, with keeping track of all your clients, keeping track of everything, and being able to keep everything centralized in one area, even with AI. Third thing we'd like to announce is we have a power connection for coaches. And this is going to bring coaches to unite them together to have a powerful connection where they can actually be strengthened, strengthen each other up. And these are powerful things that everybody can get involved in. We look forward for you guys getting involved in. And by the way, it's all in the comments below, so you can check out all the links. And we look forward for you coming in and joining. So we thank you for each and every person coming. It was definitely a blessing. It was a blast. And we look
Yeah.
forward to all the fun things we can do for each person. So just wanted to make those. We've had two people um, pretty much constantly in here today. This was one of the lower podcasts, but it was a blessing to have two. We had no comments. We usually give a reward to the best comment or the best question. And did you have anything, Will?
But it is on replay for everybody that wants to go back and watch it. Thank you for viewing. Yes, absolutely. I've got things. Thank you so much, David, for making those announcements. Looking forward to seeing you, Susan, in Absolute Power Connection this Friday. And, we're growing this. I like it. We're growing this at a rapid pace. We got some rock star coaches coming in here, really just pouring into one another. It's amazing. Don't want to miss that. Absolute community for sure. Come on in here. And what was the third one, David? I'm trying to just kind of go
The
over them.
absolute CRM.
Absolute CRM, and this is something I use and I forgot. It's because I'm not on the carnivore diet. I need the clarity. You don't want to miss that. And Susan, you are just so interesting and articulate and beautiful. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence for a second time. Real talk at the round table.
And before
We're
we go,
better because of this.
did you have anything final to say, Susan?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. It's really been fun being here. I love, our topics tonight were really interesting, I think, and I'm very honored that you asked me. So thank you.
Yes, and thank you for coming. And we'll see you guys at the Real Talk at the Round Table next week.
Sounds good.